Today we'll be asking the age-old question, is Paul McCartney dead?
You remember when you were with the Beatles and you were supposed to be dead and there's all these clues that like you'd play some song backwards and it'd say like Paul is dead and everyone thought that you were dead or something. Yep. That was a hoax, right?
We're going to be analyzing a radio broadcast from the 80s that looked into the albums of the Beatles, looking at the clues that they supposedly left.
So this radio broadcast is actually a recording from our dad, and I have searched the internet for the better quality recording, and I cannot find one. And so we're going to be using the original radio recording that our dad did back in college. So it's not the best quality, but it is good enough.
It adds to the vibe.
The camcorder that he was using was dying at the time, and so all of the songs are a little
high-pitched.
That's what he says. They sound fine to me.
I think they're a little
higher pitch.
I can hear the difference.
Is Paul McCartney dead?
Dang it.
Some people believe that he is. You might recall the wild rumors that spread across America over 10 years ago. Most people have come to conclusions of their own, generally that Paul is alive and well, touring, recording, and otherwise enjoying a quiet life on a farm in Scotland.
Why Scotland?
Others continue to pursue the idea.
He did?
Yeah, at the time this was being recorded, he lived on a farm in Scotland. So they're saying most people think he's alive.
I did not know this.
Idea that Paul McCartney died in a car crash in November of 1966 was replaced by a look-alike, carefully groomed in his musical style to match that of the deceased Beatle. Crazy, you say? My name is Dave Fox, and with the able help of Beatle expert Joel Glazier, we'll spend the next hour probing some of the clues and theories behind this bizarre story. Listen very carefully. You may find that sanity is not quite so easily defined as you thought. You may begin to question your own.
Really?
Hold up.
Okay.
So if Beatles actually did leave clues on their albums, that's going to make us question the definition of sanity and then question if we are actually insane.
I mean,
how did he get to that? By saying crazy, you say?
Crazy, you say? Well, you know the music already. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, it is pretty intense.
Yeah.
To fully participate, it would help if you got your copies of the following albums: Sgt. Pepper, Magical Mystery Tour, The Beatles, more commonly known as the White Album, and Abbey Road. In the fall of 1969, shortly after the release of the Beatles' Abbey Road, a rumor swept America concerning the death of Paul McCartney. It was the cover of Abbey Road that started it all. As you look at the four Beatles, you'll notice that Paul is the only one out of step. To draw attention to Paul. Also, Paul is the only one barefoot, which allegedly is how people are buried in several countries.
Barefoot.
The Beatles are shown walking in a specific order. John dressed in white.
Which is how people are allegedly buried in several countries. I need a little more detail on that.
Allegedly.
Allegedly in
Not
several
countries. But, you know.
And what countries? Anyways, back to this.
As a religious person would be. Ringo is dressed as an undertaker. Paul, shabby suited and barefoot, resembles a corpse. And finally, George, in old jeans, is a gravedigger. The cover of Abbey Road is a funeral procession. A closer look at Paul will reveal something else. He's holding his cigarette, also known as a coffin nail, in his right hand. And any Beatlemaniac knows that Paul is left-handed.
Also known as a coffin.
This is a most significant clue as to who we're seeing on the cover.
I hold my cigarettes in my left hand.
But in fact, a replacement who filled in for Paul after his death.
You hold your cigarettes.
Yes.
According to the story,
no big deal.
which will be pieced together from other albums,
gum cigarettes?
Paul was killed in an auto accident in 1966, and a replacement, William Campbell, had been filling in for him for photographic reasons. Campbell was chosen because he'd been the winner of a Paul McCartney lookalike contest a year earlier. William Campbell from Scotland has not been heard from since.
So
is he dead?
A lookalike was able to all of a sudden sound exactly like Paul and write amazing music.
And play just like him.
Yeah.
Do everything.
Wow. In fact, could be the person posing as Paul on the cover.
William Campbell from Scotland. There is no more Williams. That was the only William Campbell.
The William Campbell has not been seen.
Only in Scotland.
Cover of Abbey Road. Behind George Harrison appears a white Volkswagen, which looks like an innocent car until one checks out the license plate, 28IF. It means, of course, that Paul would have been 28 if he were still alive.
Oh, of course.
The police van on the other side of the street symbolizes the police who were called to the scene of the original.
I also want to point out, that's not the full license plate. That's only the bottom part. There's also a LWV or something above it. So this half of the license plate,
which is actually, of course, stands for Last Wishes Verily.
Of course.
His last wish was to turn 28.
Yes.
Original McCartney accident in 1966, and were paid off to hush up the whole affair. By now, many of you are probably thinking of ways to discredit these clues.
Yeah.
The Beatles themselves tried to do just that in 1969.
And plant them at the same time.
You're wrong, you may be thinking, regarding Paul's being 28 if he were alive in the fall of '69. It has been pointed out that he would have been only 27. But he would have been in his 28th year of existence. And by Indian belief, would be 28, as one's first year as a fetus is counted as part of one's life. And the Beatles made no secret of their fascination with Indian beliefs.
Really?
No secret.
Just to recap, the car, half of the car's license plate says 28IF, which of course means that if Paul were still alive, he would have been in his 28th year of existence. Not 28 years old, but 28th year of existence.
But it was common knowledge the Beatles were obsessed with Native American beliefs.
And that's such a well-known Native American belief, too. So, like, it just makes sense, you know?
Oh, and he was barefoot, which is allegedly how some countries bury their dead.
The back cover of the Abbey Road LP held interesting clues also. The name Beatles has a crack running through it on the S, making the name imperfect.
Bring it up.
The 8 dots before the word Beatles, when connected, form the number 3 rather than 4.
I can see it.
When visiting the wall in 1970,
is almost invisible. How would they? And what does it?
It's like at the very, very end of the S.
Yeah.
How would it? And what does that have to do with anything? Making it imperfect?
It's imperfect. Like the Beatles are imperfect without the original Paul McCartney.
And like Abbey Road is imperfect as a recording studio.
Okay.
There were in fact 13
that's what cracks
dots
mean,
on the
apparently.
wall. But the picture purposely included only these 8 dots. Okay. Passing through this otherwise clear photograph is a girl in a blue dress. What's the reason for this? Hold the album some distance away and observe her elbow. What will appear is the image of Paul McCartney's profile. Songs of
I don't see it.
So, is he the girl? Did he dress up like a girl?
Yeah, what does that prove about his death?
Yeah, and that means he's dead?
And where is a profile at all?
Like, I think he's talking about the profile of the girl.
And, what? No, he says look at her elbow.
Well, yeah. Well,
and if you're wondering if it's just bad quality, this picture I found, I've actually looked at the actual record cover.
And
I still cannot see anything
Why?
that resembles a profile.
But if you look at the elbow from far away, it looks like Paul McCartney's outline.
If you look at the elbow from 30 feet away and squint your eyes...
Not anyone else,
I can see
specifically Paul. It's
On the Abbey
clearly
Road LP
his.
also held some revelations. The first song, Come Together, is particularly telling. Person continues to have nail and hair growth, since hair and nails contain
Wait,
protein which
what is
continues
this
to grow.
picture? Where did you find
The song
this?
continues, he wear no
don't know.
shoe shine. A barefoot person like Paul on the Abbey Road cover. He played toe jam football, rugby, which Paul played quite well. He got monkey finger, skinny and bony like a skeleton's. Also, I know you, you know me, come together. According to the theorists, Paul singing from his grave.
What does that mean? Like, what was he meaning in that song? Come together over me?
Like the real meaning?
Yes.
I don't know. He's singing from his grave.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we need to do another video of why the Beatles are the greatest band ever.
Okay.
No. Yes.
But
You'll
moving
also
on.
recall the line 1 and 1 and 1 is 3. This refers to the fact that there are now only 3 Beatles.
I feel like this song
can
is
see that.
actually... I feel like they were meaning to do that.
Yeah.
I can see that, yeah.
Because the song doesn't really make sense
No.
unless it's talking about that.
Yeah.
Like, unless it actually is Paul. They're singing, or he's singing about his body and then singing from his grave.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only way it makes sense to me.
The song Sun King draws its title from historical literature. The
Handsome
Sun
guy.
King was a name given to Louis XIV of France. This powerful monarch was a subject of Alexander Dumas' Man in the Iron Mask, a piece of historical fiction about a twin brother of Louis who was sentenced to wear an iron mask to prevent his public identification. However, the twin ended up replacing the real Louis without anyone but his closest associates knowing about the switch. The whole scenario resembles the theory of Paul being replaced and the change being covered up. The finale of the album includes 3
good.
songs which were...
You can see that?
Yeah.
I feel like that's deeper than the 3 Beatles.
I feel like it's pretty deep, but I feel like it's a pretty big coincidence at the same time.
That's called Sun King,
Yeah.
and it's about him. I don't know how well known that was at all,
That's true.
or if they're trying to stretch again.
Yeah. But like
Run
the fact
into one-
that Louis, the king's twin, replaced him.
Yeah.
Like, I can see that. And
Yeah.
Paul and yeah.
Well, I think that's not real. I think he was they used him in a fictional book, The Man in the Iron Mask, that was about that. So it's like 4 levels of coincidence
That's true.
to get to that. But maybe.
one another. Besides being some of the most brilliant and tight playing in their careers,
This
the
is
Beatles
the
suggest
one I was
several
talking
things
about.
from the titles.
They were the last recordings.
Oh, really?
They run into each other and they do the solos.
Golden Slumbers,
So this is the drum
a
solo.
long sleep. Carry That Weight, a corpse-filled coffin. And The End, no explanation needed.
So, let's recap. Carry That Weight, a corpse-filled coffin, doesn't make sense to me. It makes more sense like someone's carrying guilt.
The pallbearers of the coffin
Yeah.
are carrying the weight of the coffin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Paul Bear?
It's another clue.
Except he says boy, not boys. So is one guy carrying Paul in his coffin?
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
I'm just kidding. Maybe it does. I don't
Why
know.
does the end? That's my
The
favorite
end.
part.
No
No
explanation
explanation needed.
It's the end of what? Paul? The
Yeah.
Beatles? What?
Ooh,
Okay.
everything.
After finding the clues on this album, it was time to look back to previous albums to see what had been missed before anyone caught on that the clues were there waiting to be discovered. Most agreed that the death of Paul occurred in November 1966. Thus, the Sgt. Pepper LP would be the first album to contain clues. The front cover was a gem of a find. One sees the 4 Beatles all holding instruments which are inappropriate to them. But of the four, only Paul is holding a wooden, for coffin instrument. It's also black, for death. Also,
Sorry,
three
where
Beatles
are
are
we?
facing the camera at an angle, but
What
Paul
album?
appears straight on, as if he were being propped up by Ringo and George. The whole cover is a grave scene with the word Beatles being spelled out in flowers. Red hyacinths, the mythological flower of death. The yellow flowers have been interpreted as being a left-handed bass guitar, complete with strings. Or if one looks sideways, the yellow flower resembles a P for Paul. The personalities on the
actually
album
can
are
see
interesting.
it.
John Lennon on Tony Palmer's All You Need Is Love TV series
guitar.
commented that the people in the
That's-
Sgt. Pepper cover, two are flying, two are not. Apparently an inside joke. Whatever the inside joke is, let's look at the personalities.
Forget
Paul
about
is-
the inside joke.
Okay, what was the purpose of telling us that? Maybe to see if we could figure it out.
Okay.
Two are flying, two are not.
Okay. Well, if there's four Beatles, who are the ones that aren't flying anymore? Paul's dead. Who's the other one?
John?
John, they were foreshadowing his death.
Oh my god.
This goes even deeper.
Was the only one with a hand over his head. A symbol of death, representing the hand of a religious leader who blesses the body before it's interred. The owner of this hand, who is staring at Paul, is the writer Stephen Crane, most famous for his war story, The Red Badge of Courage. Mr. Crane himself died when he was 28 years old. Another of
Paul
Mr.
wasn't
Crane's
28,
short
so.
stories is called The Open Boat. It
28
concerns
or
four men who
28th year
struggle
of
to survive in a
existence in
lifeboat.
Indian culture.
The one most determined to keep the group together dies in the ordeal.
That's
The other three, then, act as interpreters of the event.
Sorry, what was it?
So he wrote another story.
Oh, Stephen Crane.
Yeah, he wrote another story about four guys in a boat. The one most determined to keep them together died, and then the other three tell his story.
And he's looking right at Paul.
Yeah.
This is the craziest album cover yet.
Other famous but dead people looking at Paul include Edgar Allan Poe, himself dying a tragic death. Marilyn Monroe, a suicide victim. James Dean, who died in a cycle crash. Jane Mansfield, decapitated in a car crash. And the other dead Beatle, Stu Sutcliffe. There seems to be quite a collection of dead
So I can't remember. I know they had a drummer before Ringo. I'm assuming
Oh,
that's
yeah.
him.
Really?
And I guess he died.
Guess.
I don't know.
heroes. Along the grave itself are some noteworthy symbols. On the left is a doll with a split in his head. Paul allegedly died from head injuries. On the right is a blacked-out television set representing the news blackout of the actual accident, and a red-haired doll representing Paul's old fiancée, Jane Asher. By the way, Jane suddenly dropped out of the Beatle limelight, not wanting to continue to be part of the cover-up with Paul's replacements. Over the L in Beatles is Paul's old rugby trophy. Remember, toe jam football.
Toe jam
To the
football.
far right is a doll seated in the lap of a deathly figure who is wearing a blood-stained driving gloves. In the doll's hand is a white car, possibly representing Paul's white Aston Martin, which he was driving on that fateful night. The inside of the car is blood red.
No, it's not.
You can't really see the inside of the toy car.
I'm going to zoom in as much as I can.
You can't even.
Until it's 1 pixel. There's no way.
There's no red in there.
It's small enough for the doll to be able to hold it in one hand. Like, it's tiny. There's
Well,
no
we're
way
going to
they
be
can see
showing
it.
the picture too, so they can see it.
That's true. But, like, guys, there's nothing.
But
can't see
that
the
is
color.
freaky.
That is.
Like, what is this guy holding the doll? What is that with the gloves?
the red gloves.
Oh, I didn't even see that guy.
Yeah,
Where's
he's
his
like
face? I can't.
I don't know.
Is he an alien or
Maybe. Probably.
that is?
And then the blood-stained driving gloves.
Okay, I didn't even notice that before. That's freaky
Yeah, it
as
is
heck.
freaky.
Yeah.
On the doll's sweatshirt is written, "Welcome, the Rolling Stones." The Rolling Stones were involved in the cover-up, according to the theorists. And this was the Beatles' way of thanking
Who are the theorists?
They kept saying most of the experts and theorists.
The experts and the theorists.
It's like Grandma used to say, just to validate whatever she was saying, she would say, "They've done studies."
They've done studies.
Who is they and what studies, Grandma?
They've done them. So what I'm saying is true.
But okay, the Rolling Stones. So Paul dies, and they're like, "We need to cover this up."
Well, first of all,
get
how did
Billy
they
Campbell.
find out about... Oh, go on.
Well, yeah, so
You're going back.
They're like, Paul dies. They're like, we need to cover it up. So they get William Campbell, and they're like, you're going to be Paul. Fill in. So they form this cover up, and they're like, you know what we need to make sure that this cover up works? We're going to bring in this other rock band, and they're going to help us somehow.
Yeah, why would you tell a bunch of other people in the first place if you're trying to cover it up?
Yeah.
And then why would you leave clues all over your albums if you're trying to cover it up?
Yeah.
All right.
What did they even say? What the Rolling Stones did?
Nope.
Just that they helped them.
Okay.
Say.
But why would they need to help them if they never knew? Way to go, Beatles.
Thanking them for keeping it a secret.
Thanks, guys.
The cover of Sgt. Pepper conveniently opens up. The inside photo
Conveniently
again
opens
shows
up.
Paul being propped up by two other Beatles. Paul in the fetal position, which is how Indians bury their dead.
Oh, there we
A
go.
closer look at Paul's uniform shows his white bars and epaulets trimmed in black
More
for
Native
death.
American references.
But the real clincher theorist
They were
felt was on his
obsessed.
left arm. Paul is wearing a patch which reads OPD, which in England stands for officially pronounced dead. In America, the equivalent of
Are
DOA,
you sure that's not
dead on
an
arrival.
S? Oh wait, that's
The
a D.
Beatles tried as hard as they could to discredit this clue. Paul said that the
you
patch
hear what he
stands for
said?
Ontario Police Department.
No, sorry.
It's apparently the English version of Dead on Arrival. Officially pronounced dead. We can't really fact check any of this stuff
Nope.
because who knows if he's saying it or not, or telling the truth or not. And this was like
In the 80s.
40 years ago almost.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And that he must have picked the patch up in Canada. Sounds good until one realizes
Canada.
that there is no such agency as the Ontario Police Department. There is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or possibly a Toronto Police Department. But no, as Paul put it, Ontario Police
Or as
Department.
William Campbell put it.
The back cover of Sgt. Pepper also holds some clues. Of the four Beatles, only Paul has his back towards the camera, in the same pose as his body is on the front cover. Notice also that the braids on the other three Beatles are now on their left sides, whereas on the front the braids are on their right. These braids had consciously been changed, as wearing them on the left side is part of the military funeral dress code in England.
Another thing we can't verify. I mean, we could, I guess, if we wanted to do a
If we
ton of
really
research.
wanted to dig into this for hours.
I like your theory that they just graduated high school.
Yeah.
Paul also has three black buttons on his coat, representing the mourning of the other three Beatles. Finally, notice George's hand is pointing to a line of lyrics. Wednesday morning at 5 o'clock.
Okay, this is actually... I think this album is... They were actually trying to hide a bunch of clues saying that Paul died. I don't think he died, obviously, but I think it was like either a fun way to
Get
design like album covers and lyrics and stuff like that, just like kind of an inside joke thing that they thought would probably get out one day. And then it's also a genius marketing campaign because, like you said, 10 years after all the rumors started happening, they're still talking about it. But yeah, so I think this like the back cover, why is Paul facing the other way, and why does it look like he might be being propped up a little bit? And then I don't know, just the whole front cover too.
He's
there's a lot of
clearly
weird stuff.
pointing at those lyrics.
Yeah, and then he's pointing up at those lyrics.
It's a legit. He's got his pointer finger out, so.
Yeah.
This is the time that theorists
So I
say
think this
Paul was
was on purpose.
OPD, officially pronounced dead,
Wednesday
after
at
his
5
tragic
o'clock.
accident during the night. Other lyrics in the Sgt. Pepper album point out some very strong specifics. The very first song, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, has some very strong things to say. rumored in 1969 that Billy Shears was the name of a band leader in England. When he died in 1947, he said he would be resurrected in 20 years. The LP was released in...
What are all these rumors? It was rumored he was the lead singer of a band. Like, why? How hard would that be to look up to verify, like, oh, he actually was a lead singer in a band? Well, or was it just rumored that he had said he would be resurrected?
This is all made up.
Rumors and theorists and experts and...
1967. The theorists contended that Billy Campbell, who is filling in,
the theorists always
was the Billy Shears they spoke of. What would you do if I sang out of tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? He's not yet able to get the voice just right, so he's trying to stay in tune.
That is pretty interesting, though.
Yeah.
So he starts by talking about how he woke up and read the news, and there's a guy that died in a car crash. But then he obviously goes into details that wouldn't be in a news article, like the group of people that were standing and staring, and they thought they had seen his face before. All that stuff. Yeah. This is where I think like they might have had this background thing of like, oh, let's pretend that Paul died in a car wreck, and like kind of molded some songs and stuff around that.
Yeah, true.
And made it easier to write lyrics and things that people had no idea what he was talking about, but I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I can see it.
Me too.
This song, theorists contend,
is
about Paul's accident. Although the crowd thought it was somebody famous involved, they weren't sure. The news was covered up, so anyone who may have been a witness never knew for sure who it was. This song corroborates the belief that there was a car accident and that Paul died of head injuries. As the story went during the early morning sessions for Sgt. Pepper, Paul stormed out of the studios mad at the others, and after taking a few drinks, proceeded to drive off into the night. Some believe he picked up a hitchhiker named Rita, who, after recognizing her famous driver, jumped all over him, causing the accident. In another song on the LP, Lovely Rita, are the lines, I took her...
Yeah. I feel like that little bit of detail, there's no way anyone would know that. Like, I can see Rita in the car.
Sure.
And because of the lyrics, I took her home, I nearly made it. But I don't know if that's talking about Rita. But then, if they both died... Like, did she die? Or did she just cover it up after?
I think she died.
I thought she was up on the cover-up, and then she wanted out on the Sgt. Pepper album.
I thought that was his girlfriend. I thought his girlfriend dropped out of the limelight.
Was her name Rita? I don't remember.
Oh, no.
I guess you guys will be able to tell, and we'll probably cut in a clip of what it was.
And a red-haired doll representing Paul's old fiancée, Jane Asher. By the way, Jane suddenly dropped out of the Beatle limelight, not wanting to continue to be part of the cover-up with Paul's replacements. Are the lines, I took her home, I nearly made it. Other lyrics of interest on the album include From Fixing a Hole, I'm fixing a hole where the rain gets in and stops my mind from wandering. Possibly a reference to an injury of the head.
Stretch.
Within You, Without You says life flows on within you and without you. The Beatles went on without Paul. And even the innocent Good Morning tells us now you're in gear, a car, and nothing to do to save his life. A final mystery on this album appears on the English pressings on the Parlophone label. At the very end of side 2, right up along the label, is another groove. If you have a manual turntable, which doesn't automatically shut off at this point, one can make out some voices reciting a short group of words. while the exact meaning varies according to different people, some have interpreted this groove to be saying such things as Lucy Abbey all the way, or
That's
He's
what I
Found
hear.
Heaven, Just See What You Want to See,
He's
or
Found
Inshallah
Heaven.
Never. We'll play it twice more.
Inshallah never.
What do you think
M.
it
Night
says?
Shyamalan, never. Lucy Abbey.
Radio station WKBW in
But it
Buffalo, New
sounds like
York
they're
played this
saying
groove
something before
backwards
that.
and
Yeah.
suggested it says, "We'll all be back here soon." Let's try it 3 times. Let's see what you think it says.
Wait, what? Okay, I hear it that time.
Yeah, but then they say a bunch of stuff after. And then Elmer
It
Fudd
does
laughs
not
at the
appear
end.
on American pressings, but that it exists at all is an indication of the
Gus
lengths the
Gus.
Beatles
Oh,
would
yeah,
go
Gus
to
Gus.
try and hide
Cinderella.
messages in their albums. It also supposedly is on other European pressings of the album, and again, what people hear varies with the condition of the record, amplifier, and speaker system,
What is this
and
music?
probably what you had for breakfast.
This is like,
As a sidebar,
Oh,
what
Paul
you had
himself
for
claimed in a
breakfast.
Rolling Stone interview
missed
that
his
he did
joke.
not know that the groove existed until just several years ago. He played it himself and says he hears
this is George
an obscene
Harrison's
phrase.
style.
He also claims he has
He
no
liked
idea
the
how it got
sitar.
on the record.
I can dig it.
The album, which was released after Sgt. Pepper, was the album in England of the EP of music from the film Magical Mystery Tour. The front cover was quite an eye-opener for clues. The most obvious thing is that all 4 Beatles are dressed in animal costumes. Foremost is the Black Walrus, which is Paul. The black is symbolic, again, of death, and the walrus is a bad omen to
doesn't
Viking
symbolize
hunters.
death?
For if they saw a dead walrus at the start of their journeys, they would turn back because of its negative symbolism.
Wait, is this Vikings?
The yellow stars spelling out Beatle.
So, the Beatles researched Viking hunters' superstitions and found that if they saw a dead
Who
walrus,
doesn't research
they
that?
would turn back.
A
And so they're
dead
like, here's
walrus.
what we're going to do. We're going to dress Paul up like a black walrus. to show
Which
that
will
he's
symbolize
dead.
death because of the Vikings.
And we're doing this because we don't want people to know about
Well,
the
it was
lookalike.
well known that the Beatles were obsessed with Vikings.
Of course.
Yeah. So anyways, I think he just said the stars that spell out the Beatles.
Should also be examined. If the cover is held to a mirror and the largest stars are connected and read from the mirror, one can see 7 digits, a phone number. According to how you hold the cover, whether upside down or not, these 3 phone numbers are agreed on as appearing. 834-1735, 483-5317, and 237-7038.
Where?
It was common in the fall of 1969 to call these numbers
I
in
think
London.
they do.
And it was rumored that 1, you would get a funeral parlor, or 2, you would get an angry old lady whom you'd awaken from her sleep at 3 a.m.
3 a.m.
Every time. If you called at 7 a.m. or 9 p.m., she would always answer.
And she was
The-
always angry.
Yeah.
And she
She-
always just woke up from her sleep.
She's always traveling. That's why on the part
But
of the
it's
world.
always 3 a.m. is the thing.
So did the... Okay, let's just say that's true. Did the Beatles hire an old lady to act like it was 3 a.m. and she was angry that they had woken her from her sleep every time anyone called that number?
Okay.
That's the only thing
Tell
that makes
them.
sense.
Whenever you answer the phone,
It's 3 a.m. and you woke me up.
just spending all day on the phone.
And why? What's the purpose of this?
Yeah, that has nothing to do with Paul's death.
Or 3, the strangest story of all, as reported in a Washington, D.C. underground paper and simultaneously in a rumor sheet circulating through the music business in New York.
Okay. So, an underground, what was it? Underground
Newspaper.
newspaper.
And
Simultaneously.
a rumor sheet, whatever the freak that is, circulating around music culture in New
The
York or
music
something.
industry in New York.
Something like, yeah. What
Like-
does that mean?
So the music industry in New York, I don't know if you knew this, Paul, but the music industry in New York is notorious for underground rumor sheets. They just like to keep up on their rumors.
Did you see
Did
the
you-
latest rumor sheet?
Yeah. Should get the new rumor sheet.
One of the numbers on the Beatles album.
What?
No.
was that you'd get someone answering the phone who would claim to be Billy Shears.
Oh, hey.
After quizzing the caller on Beatle trivia, he would promise to send you tickets to Pepperland. It was reported that 3 Michigan students received such tickets in the mail with the inscription ADN on the envelope. Apparently, the stamps on the envelope, which the receiver was instructed to lick, were laced with LSD, because one of the Michigan students did lick them and jumped from the window to his death.
What?
The second student
Hold
claimed to
on.
have already been to Pepperland.
How did they jump to all this story here?
So, yeah, this would have been big news, and also the Beatles wouldn't they be
Charged
in trouble?
for
Yeah.
lacing LSD on mail?
The Beatles, in hiding clues to show that Paul's dead, caused the death of a student. And it's just like, it's just...
Well, I
not a
thought he was
rumor
just going to
sheet.
get high and have fun.
Yeah. but
Why
like,
else? Why?
Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds.
That's
It was
all
on
I
a
can-
rumor
okay.
sheet.
Oh, Sky of Diamonds.
Lucy in the Sky. Diamonds.
Their music is contagious. That's what they were wanting.
Land in the Caribbean Sea and was returning there on the upcoming November 27th. The third student, when queried,
Wait.
Don't back up too far. There's a little...
N on the envelope. Apparently, the stamps on the envelope, which the receiver was instructed to lick, were laced with LSD,
How?
because one of the Michigan students did lick them and jumped from the window to his death. The second student claimed to have already been to Pepperland in the Caribbean Sea and was returning there on the upcoming November 27th.
So he's just like, I don't need the tickets. I've already been. I'm going. And that's
no,
it.
I think when they questioned him, like, did you get these tickets? I think he was like, oh yeah, I went there and I'm going back.
Well, no, he said that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The third student, when queried, just laughed.
What? Why?
So is this third student a freaking psychopath?
Why?
Did he plan all of this? That's kind of what I'm thinking now.
He killed Paul.
By the way, if you call these numbers today, they're all out of service. Today's program, by the way, has been written by Joel Glazier, a Beatle expert recognized around the world.
So Joel Glazier, they got him, guys. They got
The
him.
Beatles expert that is recognized around the world.
I've never
Everyone
heard of
knows who
him.
Joel Glazier is. No, you haven't?
No.
my
Is he?
goodness.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
Is he big?
Yeah.
He is an expert, recognized around the world.
On
Beatle
page
expert.
5 of the Magical Mystery Tour booklet is an interesting photo. We see the 4 Beatles dressed in their costumes with the Black Walrus at the piano. Behind the Beatles are men dressed as surgeons.
That is...
These men symbolize the surgeons who tried to save Paul's life after the accident.
It's a whole lot of
On the
surgeons.
concrete structure in back of them are policemen, representing the ones who appeared at the scene of the crash and who were paid off to hush up the whole affair. What is the concrete structure?
I don't know.
It suggests an unmarked tomb. The top half...
How?
That's a big tomb. Is it a pyramid?
And it's not. It's
And
it's
what's
just
this
like an L.
piece?
It's...
Like, how is that a tomb in any way? It's like a wall.
They're hoping it's a tomb.
There's a
half of the
couple
photo on
walls
page
in.
6 has a sign which says the best way to go is by M&D Company.
That was creepy. That was a
M&D
creepy...
Company is a funeral company in London. Above that sign is a depart sign with a time, 8:34. The same 3 numbers which some see in the cover's phone number. But we can't see the arrive back time,
Yeah, I can't see
Paul
any of
departed
that.
on that fateful
it's
night.
probably the picture, though.
but never arrived back.
Quality.
Or they're just making it up.
The best way to go is by M&D Co.
On page 9, there's a series of drawings which summarize the plot of the film. The middle drawing on the top row is of the Fool on the Hill. There's a drawing of Paul, and the L from Hill continues and splits Paul's head. The left bottom drawing shows all 4 Beatles, and again, John has his wizard cap, Paul has his black petals, and red nose.
Why does John have again? John has his wizard's cap. Did I miss something?
Oh yeah, didn't you know?
He was a
There was a
wizard.
rumor sheet that.
Oh, the rumor. That's the one I missed.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was the November issue of the
I'm just wondering what that has to do with anything. Again, John with his wizard's cap. I'm pretty sure this is the first time they've mentioned it, right?
Yeah, I haven't heard it.
Okay.
Black petals
Black
The last
Oh,
He's
black,
got
meaning
black
death.
petals.
I thought the
Drawing
red
has a walrus
hyacinth meant death.
Well,
Remember?
it depends on the cover.
Oh,
It
right.
depends on the picture.
Right.
devouring the bus while John appears smiling from a cracked egg. Underneath the bottom drawings in section 2.
Wait, why did he mention that? That had nothing to do with anything, right?
I don't know.
There's a bus being devoured by a walrus with John in the cracked egg.
Is he smiling? He said he was smiling.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with anything?
Maybe it's, I read the news today, oh boy, and then like, what do you say? I couldn't help but laugh. Yeah.
Oh, another stretch.
The words, the bus is 10 miles north of the Dewsbury Road and they're having a lovely time. While this location is also mentioned in the film, its significance is not great unless this location, which is mentioned several times in the movie, is the scene of Paul's accident. There are those who suggest that it is not Paul sitting in the black walrus suit, but in section 12 are the words, "I am the walrus," says John. "No, you're not," cries Nicola. Here then is a firm denial of John as the
I don't know what
walrus.
he's talking about.
Yeah, I'm completely lost. What is... Oh. Black Walrus. That's why they're on this topic.
The Vikings?
Yeah. Of course. Vikings were wizards. That's...
There was some meaning. I don't know what it is, but we can leave that song going, actually. Behind
On
Paul
pages
being the
12 and
walrus,
13,
because
there's
they
a photo of
say,
the Beatles
here's another
again
clue
with
for
Paul
you
being
all.
barefoot.
Well, that'll
This time,
he'll
however, we're
tell
treated
you
to the
about
sight
it.
of his shoes. Look closely. His shoes are stained with blood.
Really?
Some argue that the red is just a runoff printing error from the drum, but we can easily see that the shades of red are much different. And if it were simply a printing error,
Maybe.
it would have been corrected on later copies.
I think this is the quality of the picture,
The
too.
stains are still on current pressings. The drum has a message for us, too. Written on the drum is the message, "Love the 3 Beatles." And we all know there are 4 Beatles, unless, of
So,
course...
Unless, of
Everyone's
course, what?
favorite scene appears on page...
So that drum,
Okay.
love the 3 Beatles, but this picture's cutting off. So they have like shirts and stuff that are of this drum, and it actually is just like an underline thing. Let me pull it up again. I don't know if we'll be able to see it on this, but
We can try.
so yeah, it's horrible quality on this, but it says love, and then this is just, it's not a 3, it's like a big swirl thing, and they just cut off the 3.
Yeah, from that
The
P.
Beatles.
Hey, it's a P for Paul.
But I don't think it's 3. I think that's,
Yeah.
I mean, they might have put it in
It's a
just
heart.
to like hide it, but I don't know. They've recreated that picture on a lot of stuff.
23, with the Beatles decked out in white tuxedos. Notice that Paul has on a black carnation, while the others are wearing red. The Beatles said we ran out of
That's
red ones and happened to find a
interesting.
black one backstage. Do you know how rare black carnations are?
How?
No, I don't.
Not
rare?
likely that one would be found lying around.
Oh,
The only other black or dead flowers are, in fact, being handed to Paul by the girl on the left of the picture. The final photo in the book on page 24 shows everyone happily waving at the camera. Look at the top row. You'll see that Paul is the only Beatle with a hand over his head.
oh, it's a different picture.
As
I
with
couldn't
Sgt.
find that
Pepper,
picture.
Magical Mystery Tour also contains the lyrics to the songs, which makes the task of finding clues so much easier. The title song hints at several aspects of Paul's death. The lines, "The Magical Mystery Tour, dying to take you away," is thought by some to suggest the ambulance that took Paul's body away from the scene of the accident, and inevitably to his final resting place.
Why? Why is that an ambulance?
I don't know, but I'd love this
In
song.
Strawberry Fields Forever, listen closely to the end of the fade-out. You can
Okay,
make out
this
the
one's
sound of
real.
John saying, "I buried Paul."
I need to listen to this.
Definitely.
Let's listen again.
Yeah.
To make it a little
Definitely
easier,
meant to be there.
let's speed it up to 45 RPM and see if you can make it out a little more clearly.
That didn't help me.
This song, I Am the One.
Is it I buried Paul or I married Paul?
I don't know. Was there an
Paul
M or a B?
McCartney gay?
Gay.
Maybe that's what they're leaving clues about.
Yeah.
Walrus
Doesn't he have a wife?
is one song that is full of clues. This Lennon song is, in fact, it's
And that was John saying that, and John was with Yoko. So maybe that was all part of the cover-up. I don't know.
Maybe.
They got
to
married.
clues
to
and hidden
cover
meanings. And he borrows images and phrases from at least two classic pieces of literature, Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass and James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake. A line from Finnegan's Wake. It's said by the character Humpty Dumpty, an Eggman. Humpty Dumpty and Looking Glass is the explainer of things. In this song, John is acting as the explainer. And of course, using the character Humpty Dumpty is interesting because, as every child knows, Humpty Dumpty fell and cracked his head open. As the
But he
chorus
also
of
sat
Egg
on a
Children
wall,
fades
so-
out, the sound
Yeah,
Why-
like those giant walls in that one cover.
Or like the walrus.
continues until you hear a man's voice in the background. Listen carefully. You'll hear a scene from
Smoke pot,
Shakespeare's
smoke pot.
King Lear.
Everybody smoke pot.
Why is a death scene from a Shakespearean play being read into a Beatles song already
Good
packed with
question.
How
clues?
do we know that? I guess
Coming
it was
up.
clear.
We'll look at the White Album, another album jam-packed with clues to Paul's death.
Isn't it just white?
Is Paul dead?
Oh,
It's
Turn me
actually
on, dead
the
man.
Beatles, but everyone calls it
And
White
the entire
Album.
Paul is Dead mystery comes from the White Album. It's called Glass Onion. The title is slang for a crystal ball through which many mysteries can be solved. This song refers to other clue-laden songs in its lyrics. The walrus was Paul, a key
So that
phrase
was
because for
obviously
those
put in
who are still not
on
convinced that the
purpose.
walrus in black was Paul, here
Here's another clue for you all. The walrus was Paul.
Yeah, that's purposeful.
I'm
are the
sorry
Beatles
for
being as
kicking
explicit
this.
as can be. Can we doubt the Beatles themselves when they're purposely giving us a clue?
No, we cannot.
Were the others accidental? They're
Oh,
purposely.
shoot! How did we get that? All those
it.
dead, all those dead people.
Who
in
knew
the
that they were
Sgt.
dead?
Pepper album.
Red
What?
hyacinths.
I didn't know you were recording when I said I buried Paul. And we put it on the album? Whoops!
I didn't mean to point at the date. At Paul.
This
right
was
there.
the first purposeful clue.
This song then mentions Lady Madonna, which could suggest that it's on that song that the replacement first used his real voice. Even today, fans and critics call this the other voice of Paul, his Elvis voice, for lack of a better term.
Elvis.
The song ends with
Thank you
another
very
reference
much.
to another song from Magical Mystery Tour. You'll recall the drawing of the Fool on the Hill and Magical Mystery Tour, in which Paul's head is split. You know, he's living there still.
Oh, like buried?
Is Paul dead?
Because the L on
Yeah.
the
We'll
word
continue in
hills
just a
was
moment. Don't Pass Me By on the White Album is thought to be Ringo's tribute to his late friend. For in the song, Ringo sings, I listen for your footsteps coming up the drive, but they don't arrive. I wonder where you are tonight. Don't pass me by. One of the first signs of dissension in the Beatles were the fierce arguments between Paul and Ringo. Perhaps it was after one of these that Paul stormed out of the studio on that tragic night. And we're hearing of Ringo's sad evening at home, hoping Paul would come over to resolve their differences. He never made it. And Ringo tells us why. John's deathpan is I'm So Tired. The real find comes right at the end of the song. A mumbling voice can be heard at the end of this cut and before the next one begins. When this mumbling is played backwards, the voice is very clearly saying, Paul is a dead man. Miss him, miss him, miss him.
So creepy.
So I hear we miss him. Do you guys? So the guy just said, it says, Paul's a dead man, miss him, miss him, miss him. I heard, Paul's a dead man, we miss him, miss him, miss him.
Okay.
Let's see if you guys can hear that.
To George. Many people
No,
point
you
to the
just went
song
forward.
Blackbird.
Oh, I did. We miss him, we miss him, we miss him.
The voice is probably
I don't know.
John's, though some people insist it belongs to George.
But that's obviously a clue that they purposefully put in, not one of their accidental ones.
Right.
Many
Because they
people
don't
point
want
to the
people to
song
know.
Blackbird. Again, notice the reference to black as a clue to the new Paul's feelings on taking over. Listen carefully to the
I thought-
lyrics.
The
It
new
meant-
Paul, so Billy's feelings on taking over. Is that what he's saying?
Yeah.
That's what the black is for?
No, he's saying Blackbird, the lyrics are Billy, his feelings about taking over
Okay.
Paul's place. And we are back. And the song is over.
No, it's not.
Oh, just kidding. Faked me out. Okay, we're cutting again. And
The
we
granddaddy
are
of
back.
all the clues comes elsewhere on the White Album. We'll have Revolution number 9 in just a moment. Interesting aspect.
So, real fast, we just
Hi.
remembered.
Hi.
Cole, you need to do your impression of John.
John Lennon?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
The Eggman?
Yeah.
By the way, how is
The
he
walrus.
the Eggman and the walrus?
No, Paul
He
is
was
the walrus.
he was faking you out saying he was the walrus, and then in the later song he said, "Here's another clue for you all: the walrus was Paul."
Paul gave birth to me. Okay.
No.
Just sing.
Okay. I am his, you are me, we are all together.
So good.
I am the
Wait, yeah, you gotta do the
I am the Eggman. Woo! I am the walrus.
Oh my
I'm gonna
gosh.
I'm gonna go on
The
America's
voice.
Got Talent.
To the White Album is a short little song that
Definitely
appears
should.
on the record
I'm
right
a
before
John
Revolution
Lennon
number 9.
impersonator.
It does not appear in the list of song titles,
Where?
nor do its lyrics appear on the lyric sheet. These allegorical lines lead into the selection which convinces many people the Paul is dead rumor to be something thought of more than just a series of coincidences. The track is Revolution number 9. In the beginning of the song, one can hear two men quietly talking. They're saying, "Realize, I know all about it, George, and I'm sorry. Do you forgive me?" Yes.
George
Listen
Harrison?
carefully.
Well, do know all about it, George. I'm sorry. Do you forgive me? Yes.
This apparently is
I
a
think it was-
conversation with the producer George Martin and
George
could be
Martin.
about the placing of clues on the track.
Who's
Then a
He's
voice
the
repeats the
producer.
phrase number 9 13 times. Listen again.
9?
Number 9. Number 9.
What song is this?
9.
Revolution number 9.
Why should this phrase be repeated so many times and then again later in the song?
9.
When one plays this phrase backwards, the voice says something entirely different.
Turn me on, dead man.
Are we sure?
Yeah.
What does that phrase mean exactly?
I think it meant something different.
In A Day in the Life on Sgt. Pepper,
England in
Paul
the
sang, "I'd love to turn
60s.
you on." And now, as if in answer several years later, we hear a voice
I know it means something different. I just can't remember what.
Okay.
saying, in a Beatles song,
I was
"Turn
going
me
with
on,
our
dead
other
man."
theory first.
Continuing frontwards on the cut, many strange sounds can be heard, including car horns, a car crash, and fire burning. Now, these clues are very difficult to pick out on the radio, so I'll leave it to you to listen to your own version of Revolution number 9.
We'll leave it to
In
you
the middle of the
guys.
song, a man calmly says, "He hit a pole. We'd better get him to see a surgeon." So anyhow, he went to a dentist instead. They gave him a pair of teeth that weren't any good at all, so my wings are broken, and so is my hair. I'm not in the mood for words. Find the Night Watchman. A fine natural imbalance. Must have got it in the shoulder blades. This monologue is not constant and is interrupted by horns, screams, and the sound of fire. Other dangling phrases can be heard, such as, "Take this, brother. May it serve you well." Some suggest this may be Paul passing on his fame, talent, etc. to Billy Campbell, the new Paul McCartney. When this song is played totally in reverse, more interesting phrases can be heard besides the famous "Turn Me On, Dead Man."
I wanna
While the
hear-
crashes, screams, and fire can still be heard, after about 1 minute and 10 seconds, a faint "Let me out" can be heard, apparently from someone burning in a car. At 2 minutes and 30 seconds, the fire sounds are very clear, and we hear the phrase, "There were two."
I'm just gonna have to
There
take
are
his
none
word
now.
for it because I can't hear any of that.
Paul?
Oh,
and Rita?
there are two. There are none now. There
At
were
5
two.
minutes and
There-
35
sorry.
seconds,
Yeah,
we hear
so she
someone
did
screaming.
die.
Rita died. It's confirmed. Rita was not the girl, which I
Well,
don't
if
know
it's talking
we
about
showed it.
that.
Yeah, it's got to.
What are you looking at?
The experts
Looking up what
know.
"turn me on" means.
Oh my. Okay.
Doing some research.
Let me out. Let me out. Depending on the quality of your stereo and headphones, other phrases can be heard, such as, "If you want it, you can prove it," "I'm not in the mood for work," or "Words from John." This song and the whole white LP became the world's most backwards played album, and indeed opened up a whole new way of looking at recorded music. One thing should be mentioned in this context. It should be understood by everyone that before a record is finally pressed and released, it goes through a cleaning and checking by engineers. And this involves both frontwards and backwards playing of the tapes in order to edit out any stray sounds or noises. All Beatle records went through this process as well. Therefore,
they?
we can conclude that all the extraneous sounds and words we've just listed were checked out and allowed to remain on the record by someone in control of such matters.
I can't find anything.
The final album of new Beatle material was Let It Be. The title itself suggests that perhaps the search for clues and hidden meanings should stop and all should just let it be.
Oh yeah, that
But
makes
due to the
sense.
nature of the very album itself, it's very difficult. To begin with, it's the only Beatle LP framed in black. All
Okay,
four
so
Beatles are on
time
the
out.
Yes.
They named the album "Let It Be" because they want people to just leave it alone.
Like, guys,
But
stop looking for clues.
Then they load a bunch of clues onto the album. Guys, just let it be.
They're all
Wait,
accidental.
let's hide more clues.
Well,
Oh,
these are
that's
all
true.
accidents.
I
they
forgot.
didn't mean to.
I forgot they did that a lot.
Yeah.
I thought it wasn't black.
cover, but only Paul's picture has a blood red background.
Oh,
The
what?
others.
I didn't mean to do that.
The title song on the LP is appropriate as one of the final clues presented to us. The
might
song
be my
sings about the
favorite,
heavenly
but-
Mother Mary who comes to me in times of
way.
trouble, even on that
I'm
fateful
sorry, the
November
piano's
night
just
too popular.
in 1966.
When I find myself in times
Overplayed.
of trouble,
I love it,
Mother
but
Mary
it's
comes
not
to me,
close to my
speaking
favorite.
words of wisdom,
I'm sorry, just so pretty.
Okay, so this song goes on for a while, so I'm gonna skip ahead because this is the end. Because I love what he says at the very end.
Of course.
Wraps it all up nice and neat for us. Alright guys, are you ready for the big conclusion?
This is Dave Fox. Special
Fox.
thanks to Joel Glazier, who wrote this
Joel
program, and to
Glazier,
you
of
for
course.
listening. So the question remains, Is Paul dead?
Yes.
We don't know.
No.
But does it really matter?
Oh, okay.
What? That's
Let's go
okay.
home.
That's,
So that whole program ended with, who cares?
We don't know. Well, okay.
We don't know, and
Here's my
who
theory:
cares?
is that what was the guy's name who was speaking?
Joel Glacier?
No, Joel Glacier
Oh.
put it together. Who was that guy who was talking?
Someone Fox.
Right,
Dave Fox.
Yeah.
from Fox
Here's
News.
my thing.
Fox
I'm pretty
Books.
sure Dave Fox was hired by Joel Glacier. Joel Glacier was like, dude, I put all this together, but
Yeah.
you've got a great voice. Like, you go on and announce it. And he was like, okay, cool. How much am I getting paid? Sure. Then he goes on and he announces it, but the whole time he's just like, this is so stupid. This is all just bull crap. So at the end, he's just like, we don't know. But it doesn't
matter. Like, who wastes their life
And then
doing this?
and then what's his face freaked out at him.
Joel's like, get out of my studio! I trusted you!
That's my theory.
That's a good theory.
I'm going to put it on a rumor sheet. Circulate
Start circulating it in the...
New York
underground.
underground newspapers.
So all the theorists and experts can get their hands on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, guys. So, in your opinion, is Paul dead? Okay, not is Paul dead, because obviously he's not. But why do you think... So first of all, do you think some of these were actually put on there on purpose to make people think that he was dead?
I think some of them were. The crack through the S is like, I don't.
Yeah, there's a lot. That's
The
what I think
imperfect
too.
Beatles sign.
I think most of these clues are a huge stretch, but I do think there are a lot of clues that they put in there.
Like
maybe
the-
for like marketing, maybe to help them write lyrics, maybe for like a fun creative way to like do concept albums that no one actually knows the concept. It's just like a hidden concept album.
Yeah.
I like the
So-
man in the mask
Yeah.
and the king.
Yeah. Like those, like
Are-
Paul said earlier, they could, this Paul said earlier, they could be a stretch. They could be legit. They, like the whole Louis switches, that was pretty coincidental. But it was kind of stretched to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can definitely see like some of these were, in my opinion, definitely put in on purpose.
I just think the Beatles are geniuses.
Yeah.
All around.
Well, of
Like
course.
musically,
You-
not only musically, but like all of stuff they put in their out, like all these clues and all their album covers and everything like that. It was like extremely thought out.
I remember you started just reading the lyrics of Across the Universe to me, and for some reason it just blew me away.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite lyrical songs.
Of all time.
Yeah.
For me too.
But we can't, let's not talk about why the Beatles are the greatest, because that'll be another video. And this one's already going to be like our longest video ever. I don't know how long it is, but
Sweet.
it's
But yeah.
been a long one.
So that's what we've got for you.
Yeah.
Leave your opinions in
Yeah.
the comments.
Yeah, do
And
you
be
think,
sure to
what do you think
subscribe.
about this? Maybe you do think Paul's dead. We won't make fun of you. Other people probably will, but yeah, leave your opinions in the comments.
Subscribe.
Subscribe and like, and we will see you next time.